Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the March edition of 100 Pictures of Honey. We are back on a more regular schedule for 2026, a reading every other month, so six a year. We started off with one a month, and that was a bit too much for me. But we're back to every other month, and this month is chock full of people, as I posted on social media today, all killer, no filler for those of you that or some 41 fans, you'll get that reference. I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking this evening. I want you to spend your time with the poets and their words. And so, with that being said, I think you're really going to enjoy this group of five readers tonight. They are all poets of a fierce and tender noticing. Some of them I've known their work for a long time. I've known them for a long time, and some are fairly new to me. But all of them have um, that energy of the observer, and being able to bring you as a listener or a reader a new perspective on something maybe that you've even seen every day. So if you haven't been here before, I will be dropping the official impressive bios of all of our readers into the chat, along with links to their latest books. So please support our readers and buy those books. They're all wonderful. But I will start by introducing that individual with a piece of their, it's a short excerpt from something they've written that I really love. So our first reader tonight is going to be Jason B. Crawford, and their bio and link to their latest book called Eat is in the chat. I want to share with you some words from Jason's new book, Eat, that were very special to me. And then we're going to turn it over to him. This is from Jason's poem called Exhaustion Theory. I've practiced vulnerability, placed the act in my mouth, a small film projected from my teeth that I title Times I Should Have Cried, but Didn't. Sometimes I pretend to cry at the safest part of the movie, the script would say. Sometimes the credits roll and the lights dawn, and I'm still in the front row, unable to leave, violently weeping. Jason Crawford, everyone.
Hey everyone. Um, Hopefully you can hear me pretty well. I am in a basement of a place, but yeah. Thank you, Donna, for having me, and I'm so excited to read with all of these wonderful people. And my entire class is sitting in front of me, so they're also hearing me read right now. So I'm gonna read a couple poems from the book Yeet, and I'm gonna read one new poem that my students have told me I should read. So, um, the things you need to know about this book is I wrote a book about Afrofuturism and thinking about what it looks like for Black safety, asking the question, what would it look like if all the Black people on Earth decided to leave and find a planet where they got to be safe? Um, and I will probably won't read any of those. So, essay on Yeat, an archival after Zan Phillips. Dear world, I am learning. Quietness. Here, the word is a storm that tantrums until it is a soft-tempered rain. What good is this violence when only leads to more violence? I am afraid. I bleed like a fragile balloon. I am not without fault. I have taken from others more than once. I've sped, sometimes without destination. I have traced the cracks in a water pitcher and started to mourn and stopped believing in hope. In silence, I golden child try my hand at considering the law, how to be a good Black, to not run towards nor away, nor at all considering the silence again in this lack of movement, how not to be killed, to stay still, unnoticed. There's death in this silence. There's death to be considered in everyone. Mine could be blue bullets burrowing through my chest, learning the body most fit for its meal. A gut swollen from silence. Then the body breaks, a palm fissuring, a thrashing creak. The shells of me shatter to grit. I fear the river's blue hands guiding me towards the bullet. I am a burgeoning engine, slicing my fingers to softness. I rot the skin to bone. Can the law save me from anyone but myself? Misguided, fool, ready to call the soil. So come, Reaper, come bring me home. So I have this triple sonnet in here that I really wanted to, it's after Dorothy Chan, who, as we know, loves a triple sonnet. I really wanted to start this poem off in almost like a Lion King-esque way. So it's very Lion King-ish. Um, but this is a triple sonnet for the lost, for Dorothy Chan. Everything the light touches becomes light, spiraling backwards, skulls of gray wolves, elephant husks, beaver tails, all planted in the glove of our mother's willing knees. We prayed to get somewhere, and somewhere we got, found a new name for joy in all of her beautiful singing sisters. O-shaped mouths praising the glory of becoming ghost. Oh, glory, we have been here before, been made a hymn out of a boy, a dress, a frozen tongue, been in search of what we call forever the promised land. Turned stone to a boat, to a ship tossed across a heavy ocean sky. A ship was tossed across the heavy ocean sky into what most would claim to be oblivion's sweet kiss. But we know death like a lover, how to hold them close, wield them like a blunted dream. Why must all this seem so familiar? This catching specters loose, flying from the father's wrinkling hands. We sought space and chose space and found space where we will never tell. But I could say here it is beautiful, these masterful pines, old oaks full of green stories and two long laughs. We made it, but we hadn't much time. Just look at where the outline of the water falls. Look at where the outline of the water chases the toes of the land. Can you see it? Over in the distance, my grandmother's scooping cackle, my grandfather's drying legs buckling over, Tyran dressed in 200 gold links, the edges of our love's brilliant bodies pressed against the ocean's bed. Listen to them sing, all of them, even the ones I refuse to name. Again, listen to them so loud, so bright, so brown, and glitter covered. Sing, we are free, we are free, we are home. Everything the light could touch, we become. Um, So for a very long time, the cover actually of my book is my grandparents. This is a photo that I believe like my mom took maybe 20 years ago. And for a very long time before this was the cover, I wanted the cover of Archibald John Motley's Getting Religion. It's a beautiful painting. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely look it up. But I did write a poem, an acrostic poem after it, so I'm going to do that. Getting Religion, 1984, after Archibald John Motley Jr. Sip, singe, our lips an unbloodied red. Swing, sing, smooth grooves, sax filled. The night tried to swallow everything but the sound we got, and we raucous, we loud as houndstooth, and we jive like them old men and them young men and them old men that was once young, and we are all young, and we black the block with our noise, and they listen for from their windowsills, winter longed and left they mouths, and they grab, they dance in shoes, and they dance in partners too. And we color, and we colored in black, and blue black from our lungs, and we curved hip and spit slick at the ankles. We impossible dark. We mama fried it good, grease shine babies, clay inheritance. We bestiarities of beautiful things, thickets of long tooths, the sloppiest unchecked grins, we perfect round crimson cut our lips, and we resist saying alive here or anywhere we survive. Call it taboo to be alive or anywhere of being anywhere. We want to bask in the dusk sound them children make. What night then gave us music. What I mean here is that we all want that music to catch us by our tongues. So I'm gonna read two more poems. This one poem is very special to me, so I knew I had to read it, not only because it is about my grandmother, but it's also a poem that was chosen for the Rhino Prize by Donna. So I really appreciate um, that you love this poem as much as I love this poem, especially because it is from my grandma. And for those that don't know, Donna is my poetry mom. So this is called Asters. Somehow the language of these maps has changed. I can no longer read the direction of our linear time. Often I wonder if we should make a discography of distance, catalog different ways of leaving without leaving oneself behind. I dawn from a world built on crosses aching for a flame's stubborn mouth. I think of all the ways they chose to break us in. There held sickness and sickness and sickness and sickness and sickness, and no one could tell any of them apart well enough to perform the healing. We sought grief like a harpooned whale, a clean incision into the land's skull. What beauty we found dying in the pursuit of eternity. Somehow the rain is more vibrant here. The trees have learned to blossom inward. A spiral of vibrantly mauve asters whisper to us nightly, take care, take care, take care. I cannot help but think my grandmother sits on a star of their petals, wishing me a safe and long journey home. I lay hyacinth at the foot of each year for her as we call a new place home. I will look, what will this look like next fall when we all live past the summer's blaze? So I have one more poem for us, and then I will release you all from me. But this is a new poem. It is after reading the brilliant work of Daniel, who is reading with us tonight. So I also felt like um, it made sense to read this. Notes on Blood, after Daniel Lassell. In my youth, before I lived in Northwest Ohio, bound to its open and uneasy fields, I would pressure the flesh of others in order to see how long it took to draw blood. Most often, I did not care for the wreckage or of the wreckage that I could cause. Each boy, a field of ants under my thumb. Recklessly, I would stare at them through a widened lens in acts of naming a new torture. The heat from my sun-ripened hands tore through their skulls like focused UV light. My anger's direction was often aimless in its pursuit. Whichever gravestone sternum stood in front of me, I called forth the digging of their plots. I say this only to note that my anger was not a snipered hand and knew not what rage could do in palms such as mine. I learned how to break a body and chose to practice what I was taught. Once, in Toledo, they beat a boy to near death because of his false association to color, stomped his jaw into mush, a colony of them, boys grafting a memorial out of another still warm blood. My father warned me of the temperance in color, the danger in wanting to be what I was not, how everyone is a gangster until a gangster enters the room, A boy wore color once and became that color's ghost overnight. At 17, I begged my mother for pants that I could fit an arsenal of guns, rapped about how I could be found beneath my ruining. I kicked a boy in the mouth, and his blood tie-dyed my brand new white tee. I laughed at how strong I was in comparison to his bones. I was no better than the pack of boys craving the attention of men. He wore red. They beat him until he read it. He wore red. That is all I remember. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason, my poetry son, everyone. Um, so thrilled to hear you read new work and so thrilled to hear you read Astor's. I don't know that I've ever heard you read it. Our next reader, just recently introduced to our next reader's work, and their work is also incredible, and won the Perugia Press Prize this past year. Um, Holli Carrell is going to be reading next, and don't want to take ruin too much of the book for you. I'll let her talk a little bit about it and read from it. But I was particularly struck by the poem Panoptes, and particularly by this section. I want to lizard myself into the rock's hollow shade, but God scours inside the body too. My skin peeled back, muscle and soft tissue inspected every day, God tallying lusts. I smother every spark. Holli.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Donna, for making space for us all to read tonight. And Jason, thank you for that incredible reading. I'm really honored and very happy to be here tonight. I'm going to read some poems from my book, Apostasies, which is now about 6 months old. And just a little context, the book is about structural gender violence in the LDS Mormon Church, the faith that I was raised in, and sort of just about my experiences growing up in that faith as a gender nonconforming individual. So I thought I would start with the first poem in the book that's based on a lesser known story in the Bible called Jephthah's Daughter. Jephthah's Daughter. Your father tenders your life. You yearn simply for tenderness. Nameless daughter, known only as belonging to him. He who grips your loamy, little-rooted life in his palm, wrenches it, then releases. In myth and scripture, a daughter's slaughter, never slaughter, just strategy, to achieve the desired objects of war. You, a holy daughter made holier. The wood laid, the fire, a knife, your sacrum set on the altar. I imagine the moment you understand no angel's voice breaks the heavens, no celestial arm holds your father's blade back. Your life and death, trivial as a bowl of red berries, spilling on a wooden table, scattering at his feet. The title of the next poem is Hierophany, which means the manifestation of the sacred or holy in ordinary circumstances. And the Joseph in the poem is referencing Joseph Smith, the founder of the religion I was raised in. And he claimed that he received a visitation from God when he was a teenager that directed him to create the church. He was also a sexual predator who groomed and abused many girls and women. And a large portion of my book is a hybrid essay kind of examining that history. Hierophany. I memorized Joseph's vision as a girl, repeated delivered from the enemy like directions home. My mythology, a blonde boy prophet from Vermont, kneeling in a shaded grove, praying for revelation, then instantly receiving gifts. Two embodied beings descending towards him from the sun, blinding over tips of sycamore in twin pillars of light, the Father and his Son. I won't argue over the validity of vision. We all have visions. We've all cried out in woods. My interests lie in appetites, how desire spoils. I prefer Joseph before his miracle, before he became another chosen holy man, when he was just a broke farm boy digging for buried treasure, his longing sharp as the shovel's tip, but more honest than what came after. I am so tired of men calling their hunger God, their greed commandment. But this is an American story after all. So I thought I would read next two poems in the book that kind of inhabit the perspective of a younger voice. And this first one is a poem that's a bit about growing up in a very insular pre-internet community and having no sexual education. The Woman Next Door. God-seeded breasts, watered ovaries, and depending on how good or bad you were, put the babies there. God was vengeful. I knew that. The woman next door had 17 children, wild as crows. What had she done to deserve boys who tortured kittens and scrambled eggs on the hot sidewalk? I'd seen her in her bedroom, massive and flowered, pale as yeasted dough before the beam of the television, floundering on her patched up waterbed, her eyes glassed and flat. And I saw myself too, like a pressed dead flower inside the pages of a bed, each future breast a dropped anchor, and the windows always shut. Donna, I love that you read from Panoptes because it's a poem that I don't read very often, and I actually think I'm going to read it next. So thank you for excerpting a little bit from that poem, Panoptes. What do I know of God? He rips the door off its hinges and hovers over my bed. His watching diminishes me, hurts me. Who finds comfort in his seething gaze? The scriptures say I must suffocate my thoughts. Nothing is free from his inspection. I want to lizard myself into the rock's hollow shade. But God scours inside the body too. My skin peeled back, muscle and soft tissue inspected every day. God tallying lusts. I smother every spark. Am I rancid, effete, or am I good? In bed, I see his hand lowering from the top of the ceiling toward me. If I am only made for this judgment, what self? What self have I to lose? I thought I would the poem that I read from that I'm going to read next comes from a pair of poems that are erasures and translations of women's testimonies during the Inquisition in the 14th century, and both were accused of heresy and received severe punishments for their disbelief and rejection of religion. Heretical woman, odd. I will say this to everyone, and what will happen to me if I speak? The soul is but blood. Once we die, the soul dies. I held a dying newborn from morning till evening, watched to see if anything fled the child's mouth as he died. Nothing leaves the mouth but breath. If I had seen something different, I would have known the soul was something. I do not believe in hell or paradise or any other time but the present. Our souls will not be punished or rewarded. When all the blood leaves an animal, the animal dies. The body rots, it can never be revived. I do not see anything coming out of the bodies of dying men but wind. This next poem is called Confession. Confession. All my life I've hungered for a quiet privacy. I must explain this to you. As a girl, I wanted a door deep in the vault of my closet, a child-sized hole only I could crawl through. I tried to hide, but I could not hide because God was always in my mind, listening. Spirited, premortal, in the before life, he spoke to me, they said, and I agreed to his plan, they said, or else I wouldn't be here in this body, they said. The babies, my babies were waiting their turn. I watched my brothers, pondered if I wanted what they had. I was tired of being a girl, but I didn't want to be a boy either. Did I want nothing? I wanted nothingness. How free. To have a body like river silt, foxglove, smoke. Yes, to be river silt, foxglove, smoke. I'm going to read two more poems. This next poem is one that I've never read, and so I thought I would challenge myself to read it out loud. It's called Sonnet for Bringing Forth Flowers. Difficult for so long to say the word masturbate. I wasn't a late bloomer. I was traumatized by desire, sex, my body and mind, severed, uncoupled from mine. I feared I carried only lacerations inside. The first time I came alone, I came towards myself, pleasure, the bleated, belated miracle of my life. In a cold, white room bare is a ribcage, a miracle bestowed by no other god, but this hand, my Redeemer. And where once void and darkness, light. I said, let my body bring forth flowers. I made stars collide from my thighs. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of my work. This last poem is called Lot's Wife. I imagine her in the moments before she glanced back, furious, sweat slicked and sprinting, ash scattered over her gown and hair, hearing screams of the suffering bleeding behind her, her only possession, a husband's name. I don't believe she looked back in longing for a home that was never hers. Did she understand, quick as thunder's whip, that she could not follow a man who offered her daughters thoughtlessly as water to a throng of thirsty lips? And who honors the terms of a tyrant god? At her back, the heat of the burning city, black smoke, loose golden sparks scalding her skin as she stops. Her neck, the hinge, the bridge from body to mind, the tender place where the pulse beats. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. The book is really an incredible achievement. That lyric essay in the middle, surrounded by those beautiful poems. So again, support our poets tonight. Get those books. And thank you. Thank you for your words. Our next reader is Daniel Lassell, who I had the pleasure of meeting for the first time this year. Again, like I said, all these poets, poets of noticing, poets of questioning as well. I'm just going to read, there's several poems in Daniel's book called Frame, and this is a little piece from one of them. In the underworld, fruition will not matter. Religion will whisper like a distant pond. On my hell porch, I will laugh with friends about what the prophets knew but did not share. There will be no more church going, no more of that ever-present asking, won't you join us? Daniel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's such an honor to join these incredible poets. This lineup is just amazing. Let's see. So I will start off reading a poem titled Seven Frames. Seven Frames, Kentucky, circa 2003. On my family's farm, during those pensive afternoons, our dogs searched for anything to bark at. One dog got a skunk to the face. Our farmhouse for months waned with an eye-watering sour off every wall, a nostril tinge. Those faces my siblings made when the dogs returned, how they craned out, windows blathering. One night, a pickup jostled down our quarter-mile driveway and parked. The man didn't exit his truck, just watched, then drove away. The next night, he entered through our patio door, crossed the dining room to hallway. The dogs woke. This we called safety. The town nearby grew a church's graveyard. When the priest rose, song. When the priest neared the altar, prayer, then silence. The baskets passed about. My family purchased our home from a pig farmer. He told us that one season he sold all the pigs to slaughter, sold his trailer, sold his pens, kept only his pickup. He said he could use it no more, asked if we wanted it. In winter, the rust-swept floorboard erased into fields. When driving it, the brakes squealed, the engine shook. We perched our feet in ghostlit air. This next poem is called Mirror. I think this is the first time I've ever read this poem for a reading. So, Mirror. I sift through dreams and multiply fragments. You are the vaporous melt, the colors of seawater at 7 p.m. You know me, you know me. The way you are is a way. I am a recipe over stovetop, curling in and in. What else did I want of my body but to make of it perfection? The clouds heave rain. I look into puddles and find in them myself. So this book has a lot of poems titled Frame in it, and for every frame poem, there's an accompanying frame inside a frame poem somewhere else within the book. And they share the same first line as a leaping point. One is like a memory, and the other is sort of an accompanying memory or that same memory explored from a different angle or from, exploring the recesses of it. So it's it was a fun book to write. And I think it's a fun, multifaceted book to read in that way too. So this one is also titled Frame. Beyond these hills, a river slops and loops, mud gathering and bobbling at the water's continuous movement. Where smokestacks drop the darkness over this valley, and still how that darkness lingers, a jarred and silvery swirling to surface. And so, how the town has hooked this landscape, how the hills have given up their rock, and the rock has been in wanting ever since. How hills never yearned for a new landscape. The way in carving a hilltop open with a shovel's knife edge, the soil looks back like a wound. And so daylight and cattle lumber to a ridge, their ears flicking insects aloft. And so what's left on earth is our becoming. And so what will we say? And so too often a conversation softened not into embrace, but into another subject. And so the river's silt recalls a slow and wordless destruction. And so anything in form longs for purpose. This next poem was a really fun one to write because each of the lines within it repeat themselves at least 3 times throughout the poem. So, on a foot. I am thinking of toenails, their purpose on a foot, each toe receiving one nail, their purpose sort of Christ-like in gravity. Though when I think of toenails on a foot, I am thinking their purpose as evolution without improvement is depressing, the world moving imbalanced, each toe receiving sort of Christ-like improvement, the world moving on a foot as evolution without one nail. Though when I think of toenails in gravity, their purpose is depressing, sort of Christ-like, imbalanced. I am thinking of hands instead, their purpose and gravity imbalanced. Though when I think of hands instead, I am thinking improvement of toenails, as evolution without the world moving, of hands instead, each toe receiving, sort of Christ-like, one nail in gravity. I'm going to read another poem that I've never actually read before. at a reading. And since it's springtime, I thought this was appropriate. Pollen Days. The trees flaunt their sex. You will tongue their yellow grit. You will breathe their sex. You will chortle and wheeze, tinsel laced upon tonsils. Their sex will heave into your eyeballs. Vessel reddened and drenched, they will whirl their sex upon you. You will be their trapeze, their sex in you. Okay. I'm just going to read two more poems here. All right. So this next one is after a poem that I really love by Ellen Bryant Voigt called Groundhog. If you've ever read her book Headwaters, it's one of the standout poems in that collection for me. And so I loved it so much that I decided to write sort of an ekphrastic poem or a response or a poem inspired by it titled Llama. And it wouldn't be a Daniel Lassell reading without at least one llama poem. So here we go. Llama, after Groundhog by Ellen Bryant Voigt. Not unlike alpacas, which hover and wand through fields like metal detectors, lowering chins down to near soil, some fleece of burrow and flower. Llamas swim in a pasture, and grass hasn't an inkling where it's going when entering through teeth glossy and also yellowing like corn kernels, not hovering but seated with six spikes, mouth perched, as though the bone crooks silent, gnawing branches, pine and neck looping upward to eye level, ankle to the head, lips like a horse split at the upper end, furred and not hairy. It doesn't matter how long the coat. I like fuzz, which is like kissing a peach, though dappled with grains, sometimes from eating so quickly with a mouth of finger lips. To shovel back food into cheeks, not kept there, not in stomach. Their stomachs send and receive. They seldom bite open. Friends, I think they are mostly peaceful. If threatened, they will spit like we do, wrap down their heads upon necks. Their necks upon necks, they look like balloons in gentle wind. They share fences with chickens, sheep, countless flies. Someone once smacked a llama's face. Then the llama walloped open gate lock, bit off the man's ear, and the man screamed, his blood unwieldy. Like a question mark, the llama lifted his nose, clucked-eyed females sang guttural as does a dinosaur or politician. But politicians don't hum the air, don't swivel ears. With toes pinched to soil, llamas seem like a poet, like Barry if Barry lived mountain high and also shoeless, bookless, placeless. In America, people wanting of cargo from other climates name themselves brawny, bearded, fish-hooked, who would cozy to any goddamn exotic guanaco, nearly tall as the long-faced alpaca in a field, both more stoic than camel, fleece cloudy like a candy's cotton. Maybe they are clouds. It isn't a laughable body. Laughter needs the image. Don't say because and not know why. Okay. One more poem. This is the last one. Downward Rooms. I didn't know what the miners searched for, but their eagerness made me eager too. I wandered those uneven rooms, touched the soot that so enamored them, the corners, the chalk markers that pointed here, there, that way. I was not like these men, heaving their shoulders against darkness, a face that doesn't face them, it crumbles away. When they called me closer, I recognized the rock's shape, my own. They insisted that gems fruit under pressure, given time, that the stories and memories of my lifetime were asking for new light. They cheered me on as I chipped the wall apart. But grief is grief, I realized. It lives enough already in the soil and forests, more commonplace than joy. The miners enjoyed the hunt, whereas I enjoyed the peace, intrinsic in any calm, thinking that fulfillment rests between chaos and comfort. The men slapped my back and laughed, then lobbed fragments into carts. They thought to illuminate something meant to cherish it. That's not gratitude, I said. That's just performance. But they would not listen, shrinking into their elevator. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Again, the book is really interesting structure. Highly recommend reading it, purchasing it. It's going to take me a minute to get our next reader set up here. So I'm going to put Robbi's bio in the chat. Robbi Nestor's new book is ekphrastic, and which has been talked about a lot tonight. So we are actually going to try, if I can figure it out, to have, just got to have the right screen up, to share some of the images that go with the poems while she is reading. And so I am going to that's one. And let me spotlight Robbi. So you can tell me, is that working? Does everybody see the picture and Robbi? Awesome. Okay. Now I have to just try something really, does everybody still see it or did it go away? I paused it. All right. I'm gonna try it again in a second. Let me just read the little piece of Robbi's work that I chose to introduce her work, and then I'll try and get that back up properly. This is just a little line from one of her poems called Blueprint. The astronomer and fisherman are brothers, choosing a solitary life. For both, the sky's a blueprint, where they find direction, dark grid, fathomless and mute as the inside of a bell, where they alone perceive a sound, guiding them to planets circling like seabirds, silver schools of stars. Okay, let's try this again. I did not pause my screen share. You're lying to me. All right, hold on a second. I had it and then we didn't have it. Done and share.
Okay. I am not looking at the screen because I'm looking at my poems on the screen.
Does everybody else
So-
see just Robbi or seeing Robbi and the picture, or just seeing me? Nobody wants to look at me. All right, let me.
I see the stuff on the side of the slideshow. I was just now seeing it before you switched to yourself.
Okay, I'm gonna reshare it then, and
Okay.
we're good.
Thank you. I appreciate your doing this. For my first poem, I chose one called On Adaptation. That's sort of a meta-ekphrastic poem that even a manifesto about what ekphrasis is and about. And it traces a chain of influence inspired by this painting, this Russian painting, 1879, by Arkhip Quincy, which to me looked like an image straight out of the Tarkovsky's famous movie Solaris, 1972, and the novel Solaris, 1961, by Stanislaw Lem. On Adaptation. I peer from the portal, afraid to find some portion of my past projected on the mirror surface of this alien world. The field beside the barn takes shape as I watch, wrenched whole from its foundation in memory, dropped like a seed onto what had been bare rock between two continents. In this incarnation, the rain has just ended, will soon begin again. Dark clouds brood over the fields, flashing phosphorescent like deep sea jellyfish. I suppose at home we'd call this night, and yet it isn't quite. Something other than the ordinary. Cows still browse, yet the sky, spent by the storm, has at last left off illuminating the surface of the planet, a task taken up by this bright meadow, this farm, simulacrum of our green island, Earth. Next. The next poem is from a series of photographs by Beth Moon that was at some point made into one single photograph. And the poem, you can go to the next image. Yeah, it's black and white. Yeah. An acorn beginning to grow. This acorn is long, not squat like those I played with as a child, making caps for clothespin dolls. If no squirrel intrudes, no leaf blower or rake sends it tumbling into the sewer, this acorn might eventually become an oak. In these sequential shots, we see the first green corkscrew spiral from the shell. It opens like a bud, each petal peeling from the tight shut core as a mussel parts its lips to waves that bring it nourishment. Rootlets begin to search the duff, making a space to grow, to start the long unfolding that may go on for centuries. Next image is a painting by Robert Rhodes called Quarantine from the Garden Window. And the poem is called Summer Sheltering in Place. When I was small, I used to wake before the sun to sit in the still dark living room, turn on the TV, and bathe in the test pattern's bright glow. Now that I so seldom leave the house, I lift the shade at 5 a.m., watch the colors rising one by one outside the window, like an orchestra in which one player at a time joins in until a loud brightness stings my eyes, light sifting through the leaves. Gradually, that slash of green becomes the hedge, the red smudge, the neighbor's truck, backed by a splash of blue, the pool across the street, the color of a cloudless sky. There's still an umber patch of shadow underneath the trees. In the branches of the sycamore, the woodpecker listens hard, then mines the bark to find his breakfast. Like me, grubs hidden there can't escape his hammering. If I return this afternoon, the colors will have dimmed or mellowed. The shadow disappeared. What if the window's frame could suddenly contain another scene, the veld's burnt brown, acacia like a stationary cloud, grazing zebras, lions eyeing me through high grass. Remembering Monet, I look and look again at the same view, find it changed only by light, which after all is everything. Next image is a painting by the Welsh painter Phil Greenwood. And the painting's called Blossom. The poem's called After Blossom. 1,000 stars caught in the branches of the apple tree and hung like stunned wishes. Some fell to the grass, blazing white among the buttercups, the fierce green. If we could truly see the world, its brightness would burn. Sightless, we would stare all day out the window. Maybe it's best that few can glimpse the grace, and then only at moments, painting it in pigments ground from the earth, in bright patterns of paper and glass, hymning it in syllables of measured breath, humming along with the bees, carrying sweetness from one cup to another. And I should say that these last three poems come from another manuscript of ekphrastic poems that I'm working on that is, as of now, called Possible Worlds. The next poem is After Life, inspired by a photograph by Vasily Tangoulis. At the last, you might find yourself at the mouth of a tunnel, like the ones you witnessed as a child riding on the subway. Lights flickered, then went dark, but you could still make out shadowy figures hanging from ladders, flashing lanterns, wave of white tile arching overhead. When the train breached the surface, wreathed in steam, you were a hero in an epic emerging from the underworld. There have been other tunnels. Sometimes on our trips to visit cousins in New York, in your father's turquoise Chevy, you'd traverse the Holland Tunnel beneath the Hudson. The radio signal sputtered as you drove in, blinking back loud brightness, cards nosing forward like trout in orderly queues. But no one got the bends. Years later, you hiked beneath an overpass in Honolulu, where tropical dusk enveloped you, opening into the light of noon only when you reached the other end. They say a warm light awaits us after the final darkness. Some proclaim they saw a ramp ascending into clouds like the ones Moses climbed. Or else there might be this rough wooden pier suspended over nothing, milky sea of fog or cloud, slender wooden walkway that just stops. And my last poem is forthcoming. It's going to take quite a while till August for it to appear in the next issue of McQueen's Quinterly. And it's an image of NGC 1333 in the Perseus molecular cloud. The poem is called Shall I Call Her Night? This black mare gallops through the galaxy without sound. Astronomers named her NGC 1333. You'll find her in the Perseus molecular cloud. But that's a designation, not a name, not like the names the ancients gave, linked to myth and fable. Seen from a certain angle, she bulges with stars, bright bodies, inside and out. Her mane and tail are one wavering line of flame. She wears a saddle of stars. No bridle or reins restrain her. No one rides her. Is she the fire horse on the Chinese calendar? No borders in this place. No time. Darkness and light combine. So long as there is dust to shape, this horse will go on galloping. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to read with these other poets.
Thank you, Robbi. That was beautiful. It was really interesting to have the images in front of us. Hearing those as well gives us a little insight into also the way you think, which is really beautiful. We have one more reader tonight, so let me get myself organized here and get ready for Jane. That is not what I wanted to do. One moment, please. Ooh, so many things to do. Okay, here we go. Robbi, while I'm thinking of it, can you unmute and say, what is the name of your book? Because I forgot to put that on the chat, so I can put that in later.
The most recent book, the ekphrastic book that I read some poems from, is About to Disappear,
About
and
to
it's
disappear.
published by Shanti Arts, which specializes in ekphrastic poetry, and she does a gorgeous job. She does honor to not only to the poems, but to the artwork. And
Thank
that's
you.
what I was looking for. It took me 10 years to find it.
Well, we found the right place. That's good to know. Thank you so much. I will put that in the chat later. Our last reader for this evening is Jane Zwart. I have been a big admirer of Jane's work for a long time, and I'm just going to read you this little snippet from one of my favorite poems of hers, called Long Distance. This afternoon, I scolded my son away from Mount Major's steep places. I knew I was embarrassing. I did not care. I have come to the edge of myself, and here can see how some furies are also love, and how love, where everything hangs in the balance, can think of this as an acceptable trade, despise me, but survive.
Um, so I am actually going to read that one as one of the poems tonight. Yeah, and first I just want to thank everyone who has read before me. It's such an honor to be here in your company as the caboose. And thank you to Donna too, who does so much with such generosity for the poetry community. So no, you didn't steal my thunder. Same thunder. So this first poem is it's my way of saying I was a kid during the 80s without saying I was a kid during the 80s, partly. But I also like to read it on online readings because it came from an online reading. So this one is called For Danny Reading Poems. When I was a kid, only a flu could buy me a screen cubed and populated. In mourning, the mugging Bradys, appraising one another above and below, glancing summary judgments through the lattice bordering their blue cells, like a yearbook page, come to dubious life. In afternoon, an ennead of actors and comics in Rubik's cubicles, a tic-tac-toe board, 9 rooms, mostly desk. And this is what we thought of when the world got sick. We who, now middle-aged, watched Jan slide her siblings the side eye and Whoopi wisecrack from a grid center square. It's what we made jokes about, seeing ourselves populate cubed screens. That spring, we subscribed to Zoom and pretended that we too were one thing, a family, a troop. In illness, you do what you must. You build the dollhouse or dormitory, a diorama at a time. Tonight I am listening to my friend read poems. Here it is the hour before dark. There too, a high window turns cobalt behind him, but not everywhere. On the first floor, a man in an apron makes a late supper, his back to an obsidian pane, and on the third is a yellow room, a woman capped in sunlight. When I was a kid, I wished the Bradys would lean past the sashes of their squares and chat across the matrix of that rookery. I wish the Hollywood types would exit their Kit Kat portraits and cross the shotgun tenement, the game shows set. And for us too, I want this trespass, egress. I want the courtyard our quarters overlook. I want the illicit bonfire lit in the cube of air that belongs to all of us, or none. The second poem I have is called Long Distance, and you've had a little preview of it, but I will read it and you can feel like you're in on the joke because you know the second part. Long Distance. Once my mom and I fought about the distance to Ann Arbor. It isn't the city where my brother died. It's the city where a hospital failed to scrape or poison or radiate his small body back to health. And that was enough. My mom stopped thinking of that city as an acceptable place. I didn't. We fought. Neither of us would believe only small things hung in the balance. I was desperate to hear plaintive music and more, to outsmart my mother like I would a garage door, pushing a button and dancing out of range over her shelter's fail-safes. My mom was desperate to keep me from dying. We fought in my childhood bedroom. I remember her face, her fury. This afternoon, I scolded my son away from Mount Major's steep places. I knew I was embarrassing. I did not care. I have come to the edge of myself, and here can see how some furies are also love, and how love, where everything hangs in the balance, can think of this as an acceptable trade. Despise me, but survive. Thank you. This one is called Pink Noise Machine, and I actually think I have never read this one out loud as well, so another debut. Yeah, Pink Noise Machine. The ear knows the river, even the river made methodical, flumed and dammed from an untuned radio. It knows white noise, an oxbow bolo of electric burrs from pink. Pink static runs on moonbeams. Consider the ocean, its sow, its surf. A lunar crank spins water into waves and slides tides in and out. The ear knows families of sounds. It knows the motor that pox mute night from the tranquil growl of swells and rills and westerlies. Only pink can a current sound like envelopes, rattling their cellophane windows, the nights your dad paid bills. This is a newer one. It just came out in Nell, which is a journal I really love. It's called Like a Bear, Like a Princess. For my mother's sickness, everyone comes home. The brokenhearted. They have been touring as backup singers. The little boy roused from bed, but pretending to sleep, stretched out, unbuckled, in the back seat of a car we no longer own. For my mother's cancer, the stage manager returns to our town. He is a lady lawyer on family leave. He is the fifth grade teacher of the girl who calls the role of farewells, affecting, maudlin. From the bus station, I pick up the one who reads the flicker or imagines it in the inquiries of those who expect her to cry. And one night, the one who has been on the lam flies home, her pockets full of magic beans I never buy in day, but inter under my bed like mandrake, like kimchi. They are the germ of guilt and bargains. So many of these selves I expected their coats Too many for the hooks in the front hall. More than guests, they are boarders. More than ghosts, bad pennies. The only one I did not expect is the one who has grown strong, who survived and then for years slowed her heart and closed her eyes like a bear, like a princess, like a tardigrade, thawed from a millennium of ice, only to be called back to the awful world where people die. She is the shock, the one who, with one devastating exception, will see to it that all of us also survive. I have just one more, and this one is called aphelion. Aphelion is the word for the a planetary body being the furthest point from the sun, so that's where it shifts in its orbit. And it is a word I learned and loved, and so I was like, well, obviously, we need a poem about this. So, aphelion. In the stripe of grass between our sidewalk and the astronomer's side of the street, a maple. In October, Larry emailed me a picture of it, rich as egg yolk. He was sorry we couldn't see the color. From his vantage point, a story up, studying the stars in daylight. Often I think of asking him things about light and gravity, but choose instead to hold on to my errant beliefs about the planets, that they round the extremes of their orbits not as swimmers tumble turning, but as drinking birds. The shift in their intentions, no less delicate and decisive than the toy tipplers who, in top hats, sip and abstain when two bulbs swap warmth. But really, what I don't want to give up is bigger. The belief that everything that moves, worlds and loves, swimmers and heat engines, is wise to its aphelion, that we all have it in us to feel an end coming and to turn right on time. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. Well, this has been such a beautiful night of poems. Thanks to all 5 of our readers. I'm telling you, get all 5 of the books. You will not be sorry. Even if you were just at AWP and spent too much money on books and you didn't get these, you need to add them to your pile. Thank you for spending a little over an hour with us tonight. Just want to give a couple little announcements here at the end. Our next reading is going to be May 7th with Dorcia Silva, Genevieve de Guzman, Chiara De Lello, and Nadia Arioli. Very excited about that as well. And Richard Jordan, who's on the call here, has a new reading series as well. So Richard, if you could drop the name of your series in the chat, that would be great. And also coming up, if you need more poems in the next few days, the 6th anniversary of Dustin Brookshire's Wild and Precious Life series is April 1st, and there will be a big anniversary reading with prior readers. So if you're looking for more poems to fill your evenings, that is the way to go. I can smell my dinner, so I'm going to stop recording and let us all